We have a sick beaver. As a consequence of some bad decisions in the last episode, we've got our first contaminated beaver. Infected by bad water exposure, Qodvux here won't perform any work until they are cured, or they meet their demise. Today, we establish an herbalist and make sure Qodvux is able to enjoy the rest of their days. Once they're cured, our journey will take us into the turbulent world of tapping, toward taking pine resin and planks and transforming them into treated planks. While we're at it, we'll incorporate many buildings we've needed to upgrade, but couldn't, due to a lack of treated planks, turning inventors into observatories and water pumps into bigger water pumps. We round out the episode by building the citizens of Tutopolis somewhere to truly celebrate their newfound community healthcare. But if you don't want to see the steps to cure contamination and you're just here for treated planks, tap the timestamp at the bottom of the screen to skip to that section. Otherwise, let's cure Qodvux. Welcome back to Tutopolis. We are just going to jump right into it today. If we come down here to well-being, right here we have the herbalist. It takes 1 paper, which we now produce after last episode, 2 berries, and 2 of something that we do not have. That symbol is dandelions. Dandelions are similar to berries. They are planted by the forester. They are gathered by a gatherer. And they just continually produce dandelions once they are planted. The issue we have, dandelions do not occur in maps naturally, so we need to plant the dandelions ourselves. To do that, we are going to utilize this forester. We do not have much space here, but luckily, we have way more sunflower production than we need. So we're going to take this area of sunflowers here. We are going to delete them. And then with the removal of those sunflowers, we're going to plant trees and bushes. We're going to select dandelion. We're going to take a fairly sizable chunk over here and we're going to turn that into dandelions. And then though we have 200 berries stored, we might need more berries in the future. So we are just going to plant a small number of blueberries as well. I am going to plant a new gatherer flag and I'm going to give them a small warehouse for storing dandelions. Now we will eventually, when we reconfigure all this and move these bakeries, we will have a bigger spot for storing dandelions. But right now we are just trying to get some antidote. We don't need a ton of it. So a small warehouse of dandelions will do. Now these dandelions are bushes, which means that they take time to grow initially and then they take time to produce something. A normal blueberry bush, if it is watered, unlike this one, takes 12 days to grow. And then after that, it takes a full 12 days to start producing berries and then produces berries on a schedule of 3 berries every 12 days. These dandelions are going to be similar. They are on a much quicker schedule though. It's going to take 3 days for these dandelions to grow into adult. And then after that, every 3 days, they are going to produce more dandelions. So that's just going to be a matter of time. After 6 days, we will have a way to cure our beavers of contamination. But those dandelions are just going to take time. So while we wait, we are going to just build our herbalist. It's going to take 300 science points. We're going to unlock that. We're going to put it here. We're kind of limited on space in this area currently. But this is as good of a spot as any until we completely redo our space over here. And then we are going to also preempt our storage. That is going to be a tank. And then we're just going to set that to antidote. So all that is going to work in conjunction. But as I said before, it is just going to take some time. Probably approximately, if I had to guess, 7 days in game. So while I will have to wait for that to happen in real time, you will just go and see the finished product now. And our dandelions have grown, which means we're going to watch as they are harvested by our gatherers, put into, well, their gatherer stations, and then they're going to be taken over here, and we will see in just a second these pink bubbles, which mean that our herbalist is working and producing antidote. And once that is done, we should see Qodvux make his way down these stairs and down the path. And then over to our storage full of antidote, where we will watch as his contamination level drops down and the antidote level goes up. Now, there are two things that we should notice here. First of all, taking antidote did not cure all of his contamination. A -10 contamination level, which is what contamination ends up being every single time, means that a beaver is going to need 10 antidote to cure their contamination. Now, the important thing to note here is that much like any other need, as we can see, Qodvux, I believe, is going for hunger here because hunger is down to 50%. Like any other need, antidote will only be satisfied when this need drops down. So there is a cooldown on how much antidote they can take. You cannot just store, for example, 1800 antidote and hope that any contaminated beaver is immediately cured of contamination. It will still take time for them to get enough of the antidote that they actually are cured of contamination. In general, that's probably going to be, I think it's 3 or 4 days. Don't quote me on that. But the point is that Qodvux will not be cured immediately, but will be cured here in short order. And now we will watch as Qodvux goes to the antidote for the last time. They've cured their contamination, meaning that they will continue to live a long and happy beaver life, though they do not have a job. So I really hope that Qodvux did not feel particularly fulfilled by what I assume was their aquatics farmhouse job before, because now they don't have it anymore. And with Qodvux cured and running around again, it is time for us to move on to your future, which is my past, to the next topic of today's video. And so we start our journey towards treating planks with tapping. We have this tapper's shack. It gathers two things, pine resin and maple syrup. Over here on the other side of the river, after last week, we have both of those. Right here's a pine tree. We can see based off these little yellow drops, it has pine resin. Normally they produce 2 pine resin every 7 days. Here on these maple trees, we see similar drops. That is maple. They produce 3 maple every 12 days. Both of these are going to be gathered by a tapper. So we unlock a tapper shack. That's 500 research points. It's 10 gears, 20 planks, 20 logs. We are just going to put that right here. As we can see, basically we could put it anywhere here and it would cover this area. We're going to just stick it there. And then the other thing we are going to need for this, once it is done, we're going to need a place to store pine resin. We are going to need a place to store maple syrup. Maple syrup just goes in a liquid tank. So we've got maple syrup right here. Pine resin, on the other hand, for some reason is considered a solid and not a liquid. Hey, it's me from the future. So I looked it up, and it turns out it's because in real life, pine resin solidifies at room temperature, so it is stored as a solid. It's broken into little chunks like this, so it can be reheated and turned back into a liquid when it's needed. But if it was stored in an open air container like liquids are in Timberborn, it'd just turn into one massive pine resin rock. So that is going to be stored here in pine resin. I'm going to set both of these to supply, and then that all is going to get underway. And with this tapper finished, we're going to have Kiramim over here, and they should, as soon as the next day starts, or today, they will just start collecting these tapped resources. Now, like normal, we could set this to prioritize something. I am going to set it to prioritize pine resin right now, because we are going to have more of a need of pine resin than maple syrup. In general, it might be smarter to have maple syrup prioritized because it does take longer, or perhaps to just have 2 tappers, one doing each. Right now, that's not really necessary. The 1 tapper will do more than enough for us. But with the production of pine resin set up, the next thing we need to think about is going to be turning logs into treated planks. Now to do that, we'll come down here to wood, and at the far end, there's wood workshop. That's going to be 250 horsepower, 1 plank, 1 pine resin, creates treated planks. To make this, it takes 40 gears, 40 planks, and 20 wood, 800 research points. We have more than enough resources to make it. And then after pulling power out of the ground here, we're just going to build our wood workshop right across the path from our wood over here. That will give it prime access to these planks. And then we are also going to build a small storage for pine resin that is going to be on obtain over here. And our wood workshop is complete. Gurisha over here is going to start making treated planks, which does mean that we will need a place to store those. For that, I'm going to use this large pile over here, which is currently storing logs. We have an underground pile that is supposed to also be storing logs. I'm just going to take this and change that to treated planks. Since it's not storing anything, that's not going to cause any issues for us. Now to give this a little time to work, I want to actually shift gears a little bit. As we can see up at the top left here, we have 3 open workspaces. Now I'm guessing that is all currently, hauling post, but it does mean that we are below what we need for employment. Now, normally I would not expand right now without a plan, and it's going to seem like I'm doing that, but I just do want to be clear that I'm not. The next episode is going to once again address food production and really address farming in general. So I'm not just expanding without a plan of how to make up for the loss of food that we're going to have. But for a little while, we are technically going to be under that food threshold that we had established a couple episodes ago. So if everything were to go bad very quickly, like it appears to be doing in the top right up here with the flooding, then we would be in a situation where we might have beavers die of hunger. I don't expect that's going to happen. We have so far been very, very conservative about over-expanding, and I don't think that this is going to cause an issue on that. So I'm going to take this bit of our housing complex over here, and I'm going to turn it into this. Now, really, I just added a second floor, but there is a little bit more connectivity for beavers that are trying to get up here with these staircases. And obviously, these elevated housing units needed their own platforms, but a relatively simple expansion. With this done, the other thing we can start doing as we build up our treated planks, it's time for us to get rid of these inventors and upgrade to an observatory. Now, this is going to cost us 1,000 research points, but it's going to get us far more than that in return. It's going to take 10 pine resin, 30 gears, and 80 planks. So it is expensive, and it needs 200 horsepower. Luckily, in the last episode, we had anticipated this. I had put a 3-way power shaft here, with the assumption being that the power would need to go all the way through this rock. So I'm just going to blow a hole there, and then I'm going to unlock observatories, and I'm going to put it in this spot here. Now, an observatory will provide a workplace for 4 beavers, so we are essentially not losing any workplaces, but instead of ending up having 1 research per hour from it, we're going to end up with 10 research every 0.75 hours. So it's almost a 3%, a 3 times increase there. And then we're just going to hook this up. And just like magic, we have a working observatory that is going to be producing us far more research points than we were making before. Now, because we only have 30 pine resin stored, and I believe we only have 30 pine, well, we have 58 pine resin. Now, because we only have 58 pine resin stored, and that is going to be in the whole colony until these pine trees over here start producing pine resin again. And as we can see, the most recent one to be harvested is still going to be another 5 days. So I'm not going to yet build more observatories, but I will end up building 3 of them here. But right now I want to save the pine resin for our actual treated planks. Because next on the docket, and with quite a stockpile of treated planks built up, we are ready to move on to reconfiguring our water. We've had these water pumps here pumping our water for pretty much the entire series, but it is time that we get rid of them. Now I'm just going to eliminate these outright because we're going to move on fairly quick. So unlike this water pump, it produces 1 water every third of an hour, we're going to move on to using large water pumps. They take 3 times as many workers as a regular water pump, but they produce 5 times as much water. They take 10 treated planks, 5 gears, 20 logs, 400 science points. We have more than we need for that. They're also quite large. So we are going to build this one right here. And then this one water pump in and of itself is going to essentially be enough to replace the water pumps that we had before, all 5 of them, because it is 5 times as powerful as a regular water pump. However, I think it is a good time to just expand our water production anyway. The amount of water that we had stored was falling because we have passed a threshold of how many beavers we could sustain with just 15 water an hour. So we are going to come over here and we are going to replace these water pumps as well. Then up here, we can simply build another deep water pump. Now I do want to build just one more, and that's going to be over here in this lake across the river. But I am going to do just one thing that I did not do with the other ones. I'm going to build this one entirely on a platform. Personally, I think that is just a smarter way to do water pumps because the end of them has to be directly in the water anyway. We can just save the space directly by the water by putting the entire tank suspended above the water. With our water situation mostly situated, it's time to move on to the last thing that we need to do with our tapped resources. So the last major benefit for the colony is not going to come from the pine resin, it is going to come from the maple syrup. Maple syrup will allow us to make the final food that we do not have, that is going to be maple pastries. So these take wheat, they take maple syrup, and like all the bakery goods, they take logs. So we are going to build a bakery to satisfy that need. Now, again, all these bakeries are going to be moved at some point in the future, so I am just going to do this messy and sloppy. I'm going to stick this bakery here. I'm going to give us a small tank for maple syrup set to obtain. We already have wheat flour here that is set to obtain. And with this bakery built, we are just going to set that to maple pastries. And as we can see, logs, maple syrup, wheat flour, and we will produce pastries. Now that is going to take longer than any of the rest of our bakeries, but it is going to satisfy our final foodstuff well-being check. And so our beavers should be much, much happier. Now we will be inadvertently testing how much water these water pumps pull out of the ground. I am kind of thinking I may need to turn them off during droughts because I think they're going to cause irrigation issues. Yep, these are sucking up water quite quick. We have more than enough storage, so I am just going to turn these off. And we will just have to make do with 5.1 thousand water stored. And with our well-being now 28, our final use of treated planks is going to boost that up even higher. We have this living area, and I want to improve it further for our beavers. The first thing I want to do is incorporate a detailer. They're going to cost 10 metal, 5 treated planks, and 15 gears. And they just provide a small boost to our beavers' well-being. I'm going to put one there, and I'm going to put one there. But unlike most well-being buildings, detailers have a visual effect. When a beaver comes and uses a detailer, it adds a decal to their tail. So I have gone ahead and I have made a Tutopolis logo. We will see that beavers will be running around with the logo for Tutopolis directly on their tail. Oh, I love that, personally. That's very silly. But the big and final well-being building that we are going to use treated planks for. It is going to be this dance hall. Now, this is even more research points at 1.2 thousand. It is going to cost us 20 metal, 50 treated planks, and a whopping 100 lumber. But this thing, as you can see, is massive. And it is going to be quite a well-being bonus with 20 visitors that it can attract. I'm not going to put it here. Over here, I'm actually going to put in Agora. This is also a well-being building. I should have unlocked it earlier, but I had just kind of forgotten. That's going to be planks and logs. It satisfies the Agora need. It also requires 0.2 extract every hour, and it will allow us 15 visitors. So I'm going to unlock that, place that there, which is why I'm not placing the dance hall there. That'll end up being built. We will detail that in a minute. But since that space is going to be taken up by the Agora, I need a different space for our dance hall. Now, a big difference between our dance hall and an Agora is an Agora has to be built on the ground. A dance hall does not have to be built on the ground. So, what better place to put a dance hall in Tutopolis than right in the middle of our living area? Now, this was not intentional, but this is exactly the perfect size for a dance hall. So that is exactly what we are going to do, is put the dance hall here. But it is going to have to be raised up quite a bit. Now, I don't really want to destroy anything that currently exists here, which means that at the very least, everything is going to need to be up too high here. Because these lanterns are about 1.5 blocks tall. So we are going to get double platforms, and we're going to run one on one side and one on the other side. But there is an issue with using double platforms here, which is you cannot build them over a campfire. Now, luckily for us, the most recent full update, update 6, provided a solution for building buildings over something like a campfire, which cannot have platforms built on it. That is overhangs. We've not used these in Tutopolis yet. These all take a varying amount of metal, planks, and logs. And we are just going to build some of the overhangs from one side, some of the overhangs from the other, just because I think it'll look better. So we are going to unlock the 3x1 and the 2x1 overhangs. It's going to cost roughly 900 science points. And we are just going to build these off one side and build the other ones off the other side. And that is going to become a large roof structure over this campfire. We can then take our well-being building, go down here to dance hall, 1.2 thousand science points, unlock it. We're going to need to build platforms up here to this side so that our beavers can actually get to it. But luckily, Timberborn makes that easy enough. And now we are just going to have to let them build that. And while we wait for them to finish building that, I'm going to finish detailing what we have built today. And with our dance hall complete, I think that is where we are going to call it. For a recap of what I did, during that detailing session, I added some shrubbery around. I also adjusted things over here so that we have storage and our grills are up one higher. I adjusted a few storage things, like I made our metal down here an underground pile rather than a on-ground pile. But largely what you see here are the new cosmetic additions to Tutopolis. More meaningfully, this episode, we created an herbalist, meaning that we no longer have to worry about minor bad water exposure. Tutopolis can handle that with no problems. We have expanded our industry into tapping, including both pine resin and maple. The pine resin is being taken over to our industry to be turned into treated planks, which we have used for making 3 observatories, which have skyrocketed our science point production. We are now at 12,000. I believe we started this episode somewhere around 5. We have boosted our water production with large water pumps. Of course, this does mean that we're now pulling more water out of our reservoirs, so that is going to be an issue that we solve down the line. We have created detailers so that our beavers can now, if they choose to, walk around with the Tutopolis logo emblazoned on their tails. And we have expanded our leisure offerings to include a dance hall, one of the most late-game well-being buildings in the game. So if you have enjoyed all that and you want to see more, then please do subscribe. Tutopolis is continuing on. There's a lot more topics to cover. Next time, we will be taking this farmland across the river and we will be turning it into its own district, completely revamping the layout that we have to make it more reasonable and better suited to what we want it to be doing here. So if you are on board for seeing that play out, watching us eventually get into bots, and then wonders, and then who knows what, then please stick around. As always, the algorithm may bring you back here, but the only way to know for sure is to subscribe. With all of that said, thank you so much for watching today. Tutopolis will return. Goodbye.